Jake had been riding since he was 17, and in 30 years he'd seen plenty of roadside stops, gas stations, diners, the occasional garage sale with someone desperate enough to drag a folding table to the shoulder and stand in the heat. But the girl with the bicycle was something different. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old. Maybe 10 if she was small for her age. She was standing at the edge of the parking lot outside Miller's Gas & Go on Route 44, right where the gravel gave way to cracked blacktop, holding a piece of cardboard torn from what looked like a cereal box. The letters were written in purple marker, wobbly but careful, the way kids write when they're trying to make something look serious. By my bike, sir, mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days. Jake pulled his Harley to a slow roll and killed the engine. Behind him he heard Danny and Russ do the same. The three of them had been riding since 6 that morning, heading down to the Sturgis Regional Meetup. Nothing on the agenda but 2 days of open road and cold beer. He sat for a moment just looking at the girl. She was wearing a yellow t-shirt with a cartoon sun on it, the kind of shirt that used to be bright and was now the color of old dishwater. Her sneakers were mismatched, one white, one gray, and her hair was in a ponytail that had mostly come undone. She wasn't crying. That was the thing that got him. She was just standing there holding the sign with both hands, looking at the cars pulling in and out with the focused patience of someone who had already learned that most people weren't going to stop. Jake swung off the bike. He was a big man, 6'2", 240, with a beard that had gone grey at the chin and a leather vest covered in patches. He knew what he looked like. He watched the girl's expression as he walked toward her, ready for her to flinch or step back, but she didn't. She just watched him come. "Hey there," he said, stopping a few feet away and crouching down so he wasn't looming. "That your bike?" She pointed to the side of the building. Leaning against the cinder block wall was a purple bicycle with white handlebar tassels, a little rusty at the chain, a crack running through the plastic basket mounted on the front. It was a kid's bike. Her bike. "How much you asking?" She'd clearly thought about this. $20, she said. "But I'll take 15 if you don't have a 20. Danny had come up beside Jake. He heard the sharp exhale that meant Danny was doing the same math Jake was doing. 9-year-old girl, cardboard sign, bike she'd probably had since she was 6. "What's your name?" Jake asked. "Lily." "Lily. I'm Jake." He didn't offer his hand because he didn't want to make it weird. "You want to tell me about your mom?" Lily looked at him for a moment, sizing him up the way kids do when they're deciding whether an adult is the kind who actually listens or the kind who just nods and does whatever they were going to do anyway. She seemed to reach a conclusion. "She got sick," Lily said. "Not like flu sick. Like she had to stop working sick. She was a waitress at Denny's on Cooper Street, but she hurt her back and couldn't carry the plates, and they said they were sorry, but they had to let her go." She said this last part in a slightly different voice, mimicking someone else's tone. Someone who'd said sorry but hadn't meant it the way sorry is supposed to mean something. "When was that?" 4 months ago. Lily shifted the sign in her hands. "She's been trying to find other work, but it's hard because her back still hurts and she can't stand for too long. She does some stuff online, but it doesn't pay much yet." "Where's your dad?" Lily's expression didn't change exactly, but something behind it did. "He left when I was 5. We don't talk about him." Russ had joined them now, standing back a little, thumbs hooked in his vest. Jake didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on Lily. "So what happened the last 2 days?" Jake asked. "Why hasn't your mom eaten?" "We ran out," Lily said simply. "We had rice, but that ran out Wednesday. She's been giving me the last of the peanut butter for my sandwiches and telling me she already ate, but I can hear her stomach and she doesn't eat when she thinks I'm asleep. I looked in the fridge this morning." She paused. "There's nothing in there except some ketchup packets and half a thing of baking soda." Jake straightened up slowly. He looked at Danny. Danny was looking at the ground, jaw tight. "Where do you live, Lily?" "Sycamore Terrace. Building C. It's like 8 blocks. She hesitated. "I walked here with my bike because this parking lot has more people." Smart kid. Busy parking lot. Route 44 traffic. Better odds. She'd thought it through. "Does your mom know you're here?" "She thinks I'm at my friend Becca's." Lily looked down at the cardboard for just a second, the first moment of anything like shame. I didn't want her to feel bad. That hit Jake somewhere he wasn't ready for. This child had walked 8 blocks in mismatched sneakers to sell the thing she probably loved most because she didn't want her mother to feel bad about it. He took a breath. "I'm going to buy your bike," he said. Lily looked up. "But I need you to do something for me first. I need you to take us to your mom. She's going to be upset." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I think she'll be okay with it." He reached into the inside pocket of his vest and pulled out his wallet. He didn't make a show of it. He took out 2 50s and held them out to her. "That's $100. That's what your bike is worth." Lily stared at the money. "It's not worth $100. It's old." "It's worth whatever I say it's worth," Jake said. "I'm the buyer. That's how it works." She thought about this with the gravity of a small person taking commerce seriously. Then she took the money with both hands and folded it very carefully and put it in the pocket of her jeans. "Okay," she said. "Follow me." They walked. Jake and Danny and Russ pushed their bikes rather than ride them, keeping pace with Lily, who walked quickly and held her cardboard sign rolled up under her arm like she was carrying a diploma. She talked while she walked, not nervously but the way kids talk when they've been mostly quiet for a while and someone's finally listening. She told them her mom's name was Carol. She told them Carol used to make the best chicken tortilla soup in the world, and that they'd had a tradition of movie Fridays until the TV broke. She told them about her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who was nice but gave too much homework, and about how she'd been trying to practice spelling because her mom said reading and spelling were the 2 things nobody could ever take away from you. The apartment building came into view on the next block. 3 stories, beige paint, a broken light fixture above the entrance that had a plastic bag tied around it for reasons unclear. A woman was visible on the second-floor walkway, leaning against the railing, and even from a distance Jake could see the moment she saw them. The stillness. The way she straightened. By the time they reached the bottom of the stairs, Carol was at the top of them. She was younger than Jake expected, mid-30s maybe, with the same dark hair as Lily pulled back in the same kind of escaping ponytail. She was thin in the way people get thin when they've been running on stress and not enough sleep for too long. She was looking at her daughter with an expression that was equal parts relief and anguish. "Lily Marie." "Mom, it's okay." Lily climbed the first few stairs. "These are bikers. They're nice." Jake raised one hand in the most non-threatening gesture he could manage. Sorry to show up like this. Your daughter flagged us down on Route 44. Carol pressed her hand flat against her mouth for just a moment. Then she lowered it and looked at Lily with the steady gaze of a woman holding herself together through practice. "We'll talk about the flagging down strangers part," she said quietly. "She was trying to help you," Jake said. Carol looked at him then. There was something in her eyes that wasn't quite embarrassment. It was beyond embarrassment, out the other side, into something rawer and more exhausted. The look of someone who has been holding a weight for so long that they've forgotten what it felt like to put it down. "She shouldn't have to," Carol said, and her voice broke exactly once on the last word, and then she pulled it back together. "No," Jake agreed. "She shouldn't." Jake looked at Danny. Danny was already pulling out his phone. "There a grocery store near here?" Jake asked Carol. She blinked. "There's a Kroger about 6 blocks down on Mercer." Danny. "Already on it," Danny said. He was texting Russ, who had stayed down at street level with the bikes. Carol shook her head slowly. "You don't have to do that." "I know we don't," Jake said. "You want to invite us up or you want to stand on the stairs?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Lily, who was watching her mother with those careful eyes, the eyes of a child who has learned to read a room. Carol stepped back from the railing and pushed open the door behind her. The apartment was small and clean. That was the first thing Jake noticed. Whatever else had been stripped away by 4 months of no income and a back that wouldn't cooperate, Carol hadn't let the place go. The floors were swept. The dishes were washed. There was a candle on the kitchen table that had burned down to a nub, and next to it a library book and a notepad with handwriting on it. The couch had a blanket folded over the arm. It was the home of someone who still had standards and was maintaining them out of sheer stubbornness. The second thing Jake noticed was the refrigerator. Carol closed it quickly when she saw him glance at it, but not before he confirmed what Lily had said. The ketchup packets were from fast food places. The baking soda box was store brand. The shelves were white and bare and the kind of clean that comes from having nothing to spill. Jake sat in the chair across from the couch. He didn't wait to be offered it. He sat down like a man who intended to stay long enough to make something happen, and Carol seemed to understand this because she sat down too, perching on the edge of the couch with Lily beside her, their knees touching. "Tell me what happened," Jake said. "The whole thing." "You don't need the whole thing. I've got time." Carol looked at her daughter. Lily leaned into her slightly, that unconscious animal leaning that kids do when they feel safe. Carol put her arm around her. "I worked at the Denny's on Cooper for 6 years," she said. 6 years. Never missed a shift unless Lily was sick. I was a good employee. They knew it, I knew it. Then in December I slipped on ice in the parking lot coming in for a morning shift and I herniated a disc in my lower back. She said it flatly, without self-pity, like she was reading a report about someone else. The workers' comp claim got denied. Their insurance company said the fall happened before I clocked in, so it wasn't technically on the job. "That's garbage," Jake said. "That's what my lawyer said too." A pause. "My former lawyer. I had to let him go because I couldn't afford the retainer anymore. He said I had a strong case and then he said he needed another $1,500 to continue and I didn't have $1,500 so." She lifted one hand and let it drop. "That was 2 months ago." Jake nodded slowly. "You said Lily mentioned you're doing something online." "Data entry. Transcription work. Some of it's legitimate. Pays about $9 an hour when there's work available. Some weeks there's work, some weeks there isn't. This week wasn't." She looked at the table. "I've got a rent payment due in 11 days. I've been moving things around, trying to figure out how to cover it. The food budget was the thing that had the least immediate consequence, so I—" She stopped. "So you stopped eating," Jake said. "I was managing," she said, and there was just enough edge in it that he understood this was not a woman who accepted pity easily. He respected that. He didn't back down from it either. "You were managing until you weren't," he said. "That's not a failure. That's just math." Something in her face shifted very slightly. Russ came through the door without knocking, which was Russ's way, and he was carrying 4 paper bags from the Kroger and wearing the expression of a man who had taken the assignment personally. He set the bags on the kitchen counter and started unloading without ceremony. Carol stood up immediately. "You don't have to." "Sit down," Russ said, not unkindly. "I'm just putting groceries away." Carol stood there for a moment watching a large tattooed man with a ponytail carefully place a box of pasta in her cabinet, and something in her posture that she'd been holding rigid for a very long time seemed to loosen about half a degree. Danny came in behind him with 2 more bags. He caught Jake's eye and tilted his head toward the hallway in a way that meant he'd found something out. Jake got up and stepped into the hallway while Russ kept Carol occupied with questions about where she kept things. "I called Phil," Danny said quietly. Phil Montoya ran a garage and machine shop on the east side. Straight operation, good business, had been a chapter member for 11 years. He said he's been looking for someone to do remote billing and scheduling. Said the girl he had quit 3 weeks ago. It's part-time to start, but it's consistent and it's flexible. She could do it from home on her laptop. She have a laptop? Danny looked at him. Right, Jake said. We'll get to that. Phil also said if the workers' comp case is what she says it is, his brother-in-law is a labor attorney who works contingency on exactly that kind of thing. Doesn't need a retainer. Jake looked at the ceiling for a second. Then he walked back into the apartment. Carol was sitting at the kitchen table now. Lily was showing Russ something in the library book with the enthusiasm of a kid who had decided these strangers were allowed to stay. Russ was listening with complete seriousness, which was one of the things about Russ. Jake sat down across from Carol again. I'm going to tell you some things, he said, and I want you to hear them out before you say no. Carol looked at him steadily. I haven't said no to anything yet. You've got the face of someone about to. The corner of her mouth moved. Almost a smile. Okay. Tell me. He told her about Phil's shop and the billing job. He told her about the attorney who worked contingency. He told her about the attorney's track record on workers' comp cases involving premises liability and insurance company bad faith denials, which Danny had looked up on his phone in the parking lot of the Kroger and texted to Jake in a series of messages with increasingly confident punctuation. Carol listened. She didn't interrupt. She had the stillness of someone who has been disappointed enough times to be careful about hope, who treats it like a substance that can burn you if you handle it wrong. But she was listening. When he finished, she said, Why? Not why are you doing this with a question mark. Just why. Flat. Genuine. The question of a person who has been let down enough to be genuinely confused by kindness arriving from an unexpected direction. Jake thought about how to answer that honestly. "I've got a daughter," he said finally. "She's 22 now. Lives out in Portland, does something with graphic design, calls me every Sunday whether I deserve it or not." He paused. "When she was 9, her mom and I were in a bad stretch. Not as bad as this, but bad enough. A neighbor, guy named Walt, used to bring groceries over and say he'd bought too much. Every time. Too much chicken, too much bread, too much orange juice. Never made a thing of it." He looked at Carol. "I didn't understand what Walt was doing until I was older. I've been paying it forward for about 15 years now. That's why." Carol looked down at her hands on the table. "Mommy," Lily said from across the room. Carol looked up. Lily held up the library book. "Can we show them the part about the planets?" Carol made a sound that was almost a laugh. It came out a little ragged, but it was real. "Yeah, baby," she said. "We can show them the part about the planets."